Oh, sure. Meeting my spiritual teacher when I was 20 has completely changed my... I mean, before that I knew what I didn't want to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I tried different things. But then become clear. I want to progress on the path of transformation, from confusion to wisdom, from selfishness to altruism. I mean, of course, this is the goal. I'm not saying that I have achieved any of that, but at least a sense of direction, a living example. So, an ideal, a direction in life. If you walk in the mountain and you are going somewhere to see a lake or a beautiful place, or to meet someone, or to cross a mountain pass to go, then you have a purpose and a sense of direction. Then it's not always easy, ups and downs, and sometimes beautiful weather and side, sometimes it's raining, cold, carrying a backpack. It's not always fun. But every step is sort of joy, because you are progressing to a sense of direction. Now if you get lost, then you sit there. Why should you go? Because you don't know if you are going in the right direction. Maybe you're going further away, you're getting even more lost. So then the exhaustion, the cold, everything becomes unbearable. So at least thanks to my teachers, I found a sense of direction. I found what it can be to at the end of a path. So then it gives a value to every moment which I'm trying to do. So that was really the defining moment, is when I met my spiritual teacher. The first one I met in 1967 was called Kangyu Rinpoche. And the reason I'm in Portugal also is that there is a Kangyu Rinpoche Foundation that tries to carry on his legacy, his heritage. So those are my sons of my teacher and my own teachers. So I come to try to serve their purpose of benefiting beings through the heritage of my teacher. I think it's mostly the quality of the presence. And again, it's not something spooky, like some vibes or something, nothing like that. Because actually, the greatest simplicity you can imagine, but not just like sort of silly simplicity. It was I don't know how to say, but it's a mixture of wisdom, unconditional kindness, extraordinary, like a mountain, unshakable sort of strength, but not a strength that puts you down, a strength that inspires, a strength that you know that through some inner transformation you can have the resources to deal with anything. And then complete openness to others. Absolutely no fear in a way of insecurity and gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. So some kind of incredible strength, incredible compassion, and all that in a kind of simplicity. And this quality of presence, I think, since the Dalai Lama came to Portugal, and anyone who has heard or approached him can feel that authenticity. There's nothing showing off, but there is a strength of the authenticity. When the Dalai Lama tells at the end of a conference, I've told you many things, maybe you can use that, otherwise drop them, but main thing, have good heart. Anyone who says that might sound so flat, but when someone who is an immense heart says that, suddenly there's something that rings true, and you say, of course, that's the main thing in life. So authenticity has a great strength. The first king of Tibet was called Song Tsen. Song means straight, truthful, and Tsen means powerful. The power of truth, the power of authenticity. So I think that's what I felt in those teachers. I met many interesting people before meeting Kangyu Rinpoche, like Nobel Prize of Medicines and artists, great. I met Stravinsky when I was 16 years old. Who would dream of that? And all kinds of wonderful people. But I would have loved to have their skills to solve mathematical equations like this great professor, or to paint like this great artist, which I was not able to do at all. I cannot even draw a cat. But I didn't necessarily want to become like them. Some had great qualities, some were a little bit difficult people. So I didn't want to become a difficult person. So I just wanted their skills, but not necessarily what they were. I mean, I'm not putting them down, but there was a mixture like everywhere. Now, when I met my teacher, I didn't know what he knew, how learned he was about Buddhist philosophy. That really didn't matter for me. For a long time, I didn't even learn Tibetan. But what he was, that's really, I wanted to go in that direction. So that's a very different inspiration, admiring a great sportsman, and I want to make some effort to have the capacity of what he does. But here I wanted the capacity of being a little bit of what he was. That's, I think, a different type of admiration. People, these days I'm very passionate by altruism, and especially by the way we treat animals. It's not just, too much sensitivity and being too sort of sentimental. I think there's a fundamental issue there, and that's what maybe I want to ask you, not as a challenge, and probably you share my concern. But people say, it's okay to treat animals as we treat them. Just in France, 1 billion animals are killed every year for food. So compassion stops at the edge of your plate, any kind of compassion. So now, people say, well, it's not the same. There's human dignity. How can you compare human and animals? So I challenge that. Tell me what's the difference? Again, I will refer to the Dalai Lama, who often says that our modern education is at two main focuses. One is to sharpen intelligence, problem solving. I mean, it's not the only one to say that, of course. Many educators are aware of that. So problem solving through sharpening intelligence. The second one is to amass a lot of information as much as possible. Relevant information, of course. One thing that is really missing, it's hardly implied, or it's really a side subject, is how to become a good human being. And what, as a parent, if I had children, or the children I care for in the schools that we build with Karuna, what do you really want from education? That they are flourish in life, that they are good person in society, they find happiness and contribute to the well-being of others, and certainly not harm anyone. Good human beings. What education teaches? Almost everything except that. So I think the fact that values, and again, values is not just a moralistic, old-fashioned kind of moralistic attitude. It's really basic values to teach cooperation rather than competition. That's what we need in our modern world. We have enough of competition. And to teach all kinds of positive values that will contribute to the flourishing of individuals and the flourishing of society. So, and those clearly have to be taught in secular way. We cannot anymore. That was used to be done by religion with mixed agendas. They wanted both to teach value and to enroll people in their own set of beliefs. So Buddhism has no agenda like that. Nobody wants to. Buddhism never tried to convert people. But there are universal values, fortunately, which are universal, and that needs to be taught. So I was quite surprised when I was at the Davos Economic Forum, which is a trained place for a Buddhist monk. They did a survey of over 100,000 people, about mostly young people, between 20 to 30, something like that, about whether they believed there were universal values. And only half said yes. So I'm a bit puzzled by that. And I suggested them to do another opinion poll to see why they thought there's no universal value, because of it's culturally tainted, but I really feel that altruism, compassion, tolerance, how can you not say they are universal? Because why universal? Because they are in harmony with the basic wish of human beings to avoid suffering. So if you want to avoid suffering, compassion is good. If you want to contribute to minimizing suffering, altruism is good, tolerance is good. So from that perspective, without any beliefs or cultural ideas, some values seems to me unequivocally universal. So that's really missing, and there are many people now who are thinking of bringing them in a secular way. It will be something like, teaching, reinforcing emotional balance, emotional intelligence, cooperation, altruistic pro-social behavior, mindfulness. Because if you are mindful, you will be mindful of also the way others are feeling. So you can put more modern names to those values to make them more acceptable. Parents say, "Oh, I don't want someone teach meditation to my kids." But if you say we are going to help them to achieve emotional balance, everybody say, "Oh, of course." So something like that. Well, I would say, if you want to find happiness in your own life, and by the way, make others happy as well, you will not find that by only looking for power, for wealth, for influence, for strength. You will find happiness in being a good person, a good heart, and that's the best way to find happiness for yourself and give happiness to others. So be a good person, and that's the best thing. You don't have to measure that in terms of achievement in school, in terms of academic achievements. Of course, it's good to work hard for academic achievement, but it's not the ultimate thing in life. What you are going to use in your life is how good a human being you are. That will determine the quality of your life from the moment you leave school, and even at school, until you die. So, go for it. I would think of a story of people who are always eager. I don't have a name or a particular person precisely because those are anonymous heroes of compassion. Of stories of so many places in the world, of people who care for those who suffer, who bring comfort to those in need, to those who are not looking for recognition, for glory, for reward, but just out of good heart, just spontaneously go out of their way to help someone. I want to keep it general. Why? Not because I try not to find a particular story, but because I would like people to recognize that we are not. There's something called the wicked world syndrome. That we think basically the world is bad, people are wicked, they are nasty. So by keeping it anonymous, I want to suggest that there are so many wonderful good hearts at work all the time in this world, and we need to recognize that. So that's my story. One of the most precious teaching is the teaching that explains the nature of mind. So I thought it's too specific and too intimate, but that's the teaching that makes that we have a really deep relation with a particular teacher in Tibetan Buddhism, the one who shows the nature of mind. Because the mind can be our best friend, can be our worst enemy. It is the mind that drags us in suffering. It is the mind that frees us from suffering. So most wars and all that are man-made problem means mind-made problem. So the solution has to come from those who created the problem, and also has to come from the mind of those who created the problem. There's every big forest fire started with a spark. Every war started with a spark of hatred that grew out of proportion. So it started in the mind. If you say, "Oh, just give us a break," speaking about changing the mind when there's a big war going on, but how did it start? It started in someone's mind, and then the contagion went to another someone's mind who propagated hatred. That's something in the mind, hatred. So, to understand how the mind works, how those negative emotions come, how you could dissolve them, replace them by loving kindness and so forth, and what is deep within, behind the screen of all those emotions and thoughts, that fundamental aspect of the mind from where all the thoughts come from. If you don't understand that, then you will always be confused by the automatic chain reaction of your emotions. So to understand better where the mind works, and even at the fundamental level, what is the nature of mind, that's a crucial question. So that's what the experienced, realized, accomplished teacher will introduce the disciple to. And that's the greatest kindness, because that's the key of all our troubles. We have tendency to sing, to paint, to dance. These natural expressions of all human civilizations and human beings in general from the very beginning. You know. So, in a way, to use that instead of becoming a distraction, to use that as sort of elements that integrated in the path of transformation, that's even better. So like in a Buddhist society, you know, instead of doing jogging in the morning, you will go around a monument. You can walk fast for 1 hour and then recite some prayers. So you do spiritual jogging. Or if you paint instead of, I don't know, painting just nothing, you just paint the face of the appearance of a Buddha. It reminds you of wisdom and compassion. So it's like a compassion advertisement in a way for yourself and for others. So I think to use things that will help one to get free of those negative emotions rather than increasing them. You could write poems to inspire hatred in others. You know, there are poems like that to inspire racism, and what people might do that. So that's not a really good heart. I mean, whatever you might say about the quality, aesthetic quality, who cares? If it's to bring more suffering, forget it, you know. As the Dalai Lama said, there's no outer disarmament without inner disarmament, there's no outer peace without inner peace. So you have to start by disarm your own hatred, and then you can contribute to outer peace. Mm-hmm. So that's linked, you know, there's no separation between changing something inside and changing something outside.
Because normally when people begin to talk about happiness and being happy,
yes.
If there is any formulas or secrets or advices that could be applied to everyone and everything, many of the people say that the difficulty is when that terrible things happen, like a catastrophe, the sun dies.
That's when actually you can judge the level of your understanding, your practice, your inner strength. Yes. Because when something terrible happens, then why suddenly somehow you should lose meaning? I mean, those things anyway will happen, including our own death. So, I mean, if you are at war against that, then you are really headed for trouble. Now, if you turn your face away from impermanence, so how can you just make any sense of all that? So of course we will die, and everyone will die. So what? I mean, this nature of things that doesn't prevent you use any moment in the right way for spiritual transformation, for becoming a better person, to contribute something to the world. And why should you stop? Because someone even very, very dear has died. That's the best homage you can do to the person, is to continue to do some good things. If because someone dies, you're so devastated that you stop doing some nice, wonderful contribution to the world or to your own life, why? Would you rejoice of that? Thinking, oh, thank you, you're such an homage to me, that you don't do anything, you're just sitting like that all your life. This really doesn't make any sense. Suppose I die, the person who I live, so my friends and all that, I don't wish them to be crying for 20 years. I wish them to do wonderful things and not stop even 1 second because I died. Why should they? So I think we should see it like that, yes.